Hello, this is the backup video for the Ancient and Medieval History lecture and lesson for Thursday, October 1st, 2020. So your notepad is open to the Zoroastrian creation myth in your note packet, which should be out. Well, you may need to look along with somebody. If I can't find you, I don't know if I can. So what we're going to do is take a look and see who has what in here for myths. Okay. This is period 4B. Okay. Anna, who's not here, I don't think, has the Zoroastrian myth. We'll talk about that. We've got Genesis 1 and 2. Olivia, who's home, is doing a video about that. So I'll talk about these things. We covered them yesterday. Then we're going into the Jewish Talmudic myth, which is Alex's. So you're going to be going. And then we got the Islam myths from the Quran, which I don't think I assigned to anyone. Oh, wait. No, nobody took them. The Babylonian myth, which looks like McLean, who's not here. And the Hindus, which are Miss Beagleman. So that's about as far as I would expect to go today, because we're going to stop partway through so that we can correct the quizzes that you all took on Monday. Is there anyone here who was not here on Monday? That's you. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to have you both go out, so you're going to be delayed in your presentation. And you're going to go to the high school common room and take the quizzes there. Alex, have your own seat. Good luck. Come back. I'm just preparing. Yeah. That's true. You take this one?
I have it all here. No, you said Monday, so I'm prepared.
That's because I always confuse the two. The first day of this week is what I should call it. Okay. So, we will start. So you have the Zoroastrian myth in front of you, and what I'm going to do is in person demonstrate what you should have seen online yesterday. Please have an open notebook, too. What you should have seen is me talking about Zoroastrian myth on the basis of the three questions I've asked, which is, what is distinct within the myth? What is there in the myth that people should know about? Is there a really vivid story or a really vivid example or something like that that's told about the nature of the creation? The second is, what does the creation say, if anything? Not all myths deal with human beings, but what does the creation myth say about the nature of human life, of the human condition, of human existence? Why life is the way it is for us? What does the myth say about that? And the third thing is, what does the myth say about the nature of the universe, life, the universe, and everything? What does it say about the nature of the world around us? And so yesterday, we covered Zoroastrianism. We covered the Genesis stories, chapter 1 and chapter 2. And as there's nobody here that's going to be presenting on those, I'm going to ask people what they remember from yesterday's lesson. because you're kind of responsible for what we do when you're not here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Hold on. That's what I'll roll, and if I roll you, I'll call on you. All right.
I was just wondering what the first question was for representation.
The first question for what?
The first question for the, because you said, what does the myth say about and I missed like the first part of it.
Oh, the first part. Okay. What does the myth say that stands out as distinct?
Okay.
What does the myth say about the nature of human life? And what does the myth say about the nature of the universe? Okay? Okay, good. So what I'm going to ask you is to remember something that was said yesterday about the Zoroastrian creation myth. I'm going to roll now. Does anyone not understand the question? Okay. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Miss.
Oh, okay.
No, not you. Sorry. Thank you, though. Try your best to remember. I talked about it. There was no student that talked about the Zoroastrian myth. Would you like me to ask you a question that might help you? Okay. In the Persian myth and in their religion, how many gods are there?
Weren't there like, there wasn't one, there was like,
Well, what's between 1 and 3?
2.
Answer like you mean it. How many gods were there?
2.
2! Yes! Persian dualism is another name for Zoroastrianism. So there's 2 gods. Thank you. Do any of you remember anything about each of the gods? Okay, sir, and then miss.
Like one of the gods was evil and the other
Okay,
one.
we'll talk about the evil one. The evil god, does he have any relation to light or darkness?
Dark.
Yes. Okay, so he's the Dark Lord, and his name is either Agramanyu or Ahriman. You don't need to remember that. It's just evil god. Ari, what about the other god?
The other god, I remember his name, like Ahriman, something like that.
Ahura Mazda.
Yeah, Ahura Mazda, and he's like light god.
Right.
And he's supposed to like triumph.
Okay, he's supposed to triumph if what? What is our job in the struggle between this God and anti-God who are equal in power? It's unlike, there are Jews, Christians, and Muslims who believe in God, and they also believe in an evil one. Satan, the word Satan means adversary. So what is the job of human beings in Zoroastrianism? Because there is a job. There's a God of light, there's a God of darkness. They are equal. Just looking to see. Oh, I'm tempted to ask somebody who doesn't raise their hand. But fine, I will let you do that because you know.
As like every decision you make impacts whether it goes like to that kind of like point goes like to light or dark side. I don't know. It's kind of like a good place, you know?
Yeah. Everything that you do, everything that you choose, tilts things towards light or darkness. And ultimately, a critical mass of human choice is going to either plunge the world into eternal hell or save the world and make it into a heaven. That's the job of humanity. So the Persian creation myth deals with elements of that. So what does it say about life, human life? Our choices. We're decision makers, and we're going to either not only save or damn our own souls, but we're going to save or damn the whole universe. Therefore, the universe is on this razor's edge of instability between salvation and damnation. Okay? Any questions about the first myth, the Zoroastrian myth? Okay. Second myth that we covered is from the book of Genesis, chapter 1. Now, many of you will be familiar with this from your own family faith, but not all of you. So, since we covered it yesterday, Genesis creation myth, chapter 1, I want you to tell me something about it. Something that you remember that I told you about that myth. Number 17, that's a volunteer. Does anyone who has not yet spoken? Just this time. Yes, Miss. Not Peyton.
Okay, God said, let there be light.
Okay, the moment of creation is crystal clear in the Genesis story. The Lord God Almighty was there before the universe, who was outside the universe, who is bigger than life. The universe is not merely the body of God. God is transcendent beyond all that. God speaks, and he says, let there be light, and that's the moment of creation. Boom, light. Okay, Peyton, did you have something else?
He spent 6 days creating Earth. Essentially.
Right. Now, are these 24-hour Solarian days?
We don't know.
We don't know. However, I would not try to make the argument that before God makes the sun and the moon and separates the earth from the sky and from the waters, that we're talking about a 24-hour Solarian day, a day that involves the earth and the sun. There are 7 days, and in those days, God creates different aspects of the natural world. So, what does the story tell us? First of all, we don't live in an accidental universe. Jews, Christians, and Muslims believe there's an author to life. The Lord is God, the Lord is one. And that author of life is responsible for creating absolutely everything. There is nothing that exists that was not created by God or by God through one of his secondary creatures. For example, God is responsible for the Mona Lisa because God made Leonardo da Vinci, a painter, and gave him the opportunity, and he also gave Mona Lisa, the woman, that enigmatic smile. So everything happens because of God's creation. We don't live in an accidental universe. Do you have your hand up? Or? The second thing is that God rests on the Shabbat, on the Sabbath, on the holy day. And Jews, Christians, and Muslims all have Sabbath. Jews from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, because the Jewish day begins at sunset, not at sunrise, not at midnight, but at sunset. Christian Sabbath, recognizing that Easter was on Sunday, is Sunday. Muslim Sabbath is Friday. So those 3 days are each holy to one of the 3 different great monotheistic religions. Anything else about Genesis 1 that you want to mention that you think is worth mentioning? When does he create human beings?
Very last.
Very last thing, which is on what day? I thought you were going to say it, that's
No,
why. Okay. It's on, yes, the 6th day. And Genesis 1 says he creates man and woman he creates. So it doesn't go into detail. Now we're going to shift to Genesis 2. Genesis chapter 2 is a second tradition that focuses more on the earliest of people, according to the myth. So, what might you remember from what you saw yesterday about Genesis chapter 2? Person 2, that would be Emma.
Well, Adam was made from dust,
Yep.
and God blessed him like a lot, like more than everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And he joined Adam's rib and made Eve.
Made Eve. That's right. Because God took one look at man and said there's no way he's going to survive on his own. That is the joke that my wife always makes whenever we talk about this particular story. And there's truth to it. God makes Adam out of dust. Now, there's a whole Jewish tradition that we're going to go into when we talk about the Talmudic creation myth that is next in the packet, about the angels, their nature and their resentment of God giving dust a soul. That really cheeses them off. And it's one of the things that leads to the great war in heaven among the angels, which is something that, again, is talked about in these traditions. So, God makes Adam. God makes Eve. Eve is made from Adam. Do any of you remember the jobs that Adam has? There are 2 jobs that Adam has.
He had to name it.
Yes, he is the gardener of Eden, and he is the namer of things. Now, as the gardener of Eden, that establishes that, according to Jewish and Christian ideas, the natural world, it comes under our dominion. We are given lordship over the natural world. That doesn't mean we should be jerks about it, but it means that if you're talking about human life versus animal life, there's the insistence that human life is sacred to God in a way that animal life may not necessarily be. Does that mean that dogs don't go to heaven? Absolutely not. It just means that we are given dominion over the physical world. That is something the myth says. You can believe it or not. So we are gardeners of Eden. The namer of things is huge. And what it has to do with is that Adam has a mind. So when he sees the waggy-tailed barking thing and calls it a dog, he's not simply coming up with a sound symbol that is about identifying the dog. He's coming up with, he is actually shaping the dog's identity, its very nature. When Adam calls it a dog, that word has power, and it makes it loyal, courageous, kind of goofy, dog qualities. And the same thing when Adam names the other things. What does that have to do with us? Well, we, as human beings, look at the world and we imagine what it means. And each of us imagines a little bit differently. That's part of our job. We are meant to wonder about why things are the way they are. We are meant to try our best to imagine why things work the way they do, what things mean. And in that wondering, in that imagining, comes religion, comes philosophy, comes politics, comes all of this belief stuff, because we are built to wonder. So the namer of things, that's where it comes from. What about Eve's jobs? She's got jobs, according to this myth, at least the way I've interpreted it. Eve's jobs. Why is Eve made?
Help Adam.
To help Adam. So Eve's job, one of Eve's jobs, is to be a helpmate for Adam. In other words, one of the jobs of Eve and her daughters is to be the helpers of men and the companions of men. Eve is made for those purposes, and there are other purposes too. Now, does that mean that it is less important? No. But there is a difference in roles. You don't have to buy it. You can certainly interpret Genesis differently. You don't have to believe in Genesis at all. But my understanding of the mainstream understanding of the myth is that there are different roles for men and for women. And that reflects the nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle that we had previously mentioned. Anything else before we go on about these myths? I'm going in order, so it's going to seem strange, because there are people that aren't here and you all are here. Let me just see where you all fit in. Can I ask, what myth?
Number 10, Chinese.
Okay, so not yet. Which one are you?
So,
Okay.
18.
Okay, so you're way up. You're in Greek? Are you doing a Greek one or a Shona? Inca. Okay.
26 token.
Okay, so you're right at the end.
Yeah.
You're doing your own. She's going to tell us about the Mohegan, is it? No, not Mohegan. Mohawk, which is upstate New York, Iroquois tribe of Native Americans. Yes.
Number 19, Shona.
Okay, Shona from Africa.
25, Joey.
Okay, so science.
20.
Okay, Vikings. So I'm going to go through a lot of these today, but I'm only going to go through for a few minutes because we've got correcting to do. So at the risk, let's go to myth 3. And myth 3 is one that I'm actually going to read, which I haven't done normally, just because it's unfamiliar to so many people, and I think the details of the myth matter. So let me get the third myth out. And you at home can follow along if you have your notepad. We are on the third myth, myth number 3, which is the Jewish Talmudic creation myth, creation story. And I'm not going to read the notes. Okay. When God decided to create the world, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet came into his divine presence. Each one of the letters wanted to be the first letter of the first word spoken by God in the creation of the world. But it was the letter Beth that was chosen, as the first word out of the mouth of God was Baruch, meaning blessed. It was with a blessing that God began his work. On the first day, God made the heavens and the earth, light and darkness, day and night. He took a stone and threw it into the great void, where it became the core of the earth. On the second day, God created the angels. On the third day, he made the plants, including the giant cedars of Lebanon. That day, he also created iron in the earth for axes to cut the cedars down, lest they grow too tall and arrogant. The Lord created Gan Eden, the paradise, where Adam and Eve would dwell, and which the righteous enjoy when they die. The fourth day, the sun, the moon, and the stars were created. On the fifth day, the sea creatures were made, including Leviathan, as well as the birds, including the legendary Zin. It was on the sixth day that God created the beasts, including the giant behemoth. It was also on the sixth day that God made human beings. God had discussed the creation of humans with the angels, who weren't too sure that it was a good idea. Some of the angels resented the idea that God would create another sentient being, and they complained. God, tired of their impudence, pointed his finger at the angels, and they were consumed by fire. God then ordered the angel Gabriel to go and bring soil from the four corners of the world from which to make man. When Gabriel began his task, he learned that the earth was reluctant to give up any soil for the creation of humans. The earth knew that mankind would someday ruin the earth and spoil its beauty. Upon hearing this, God himself scooped up the earth and fashioned Adam, the first man. When God created the body of man, he prepared to join it with the soul, which had been created on the first day. The angels were again concerned that another creature with a soul would exist. By the way, the question of whether angels have souls is an interesting theological debate. Not all believers believe that angels have souls. Among the most contentious of these angels was Samael, meaning the venom of God, who was also called Satan, the adversary. He told God, "You created us, the angels, from your Shekinah, your divine presence. And now you would place us over a lowly thing made of dirt. You would waste a soul on a piece of mud. You would create a thinking being out of dust." God was tired of Samael's incessant complaining and his arrogance in questioning him. He then cast Samael and his followers out of heaven into hell, the absence of God's presence. Out of the dust of the ground, gathered from the four corners of the earth, God fashioned Adam, Hebrew Adamah, and into his nostrils breathed the breath of life. Some say that this Adam was like a 20-year-old man. Other rabbis say that Adam looked out over the many animals on earth and noticed that they were all male or female, yet he had no female. So God first created a woman named Lilith out of dust, but Lilith set herself over Adam and balked at the way that he wished to make love with the man on top. "Why," she scowled, "who are you to lord it over me? We are both made of dust." In her arrogance, she recited the sacred, unspeakable name of God and disappeared from sight. After this miserable creature went to live among the demons, God felt sorry for Adam and decided to make him a good woman, Eve. Adam ruled over the plants and made animals and male animals in the east and north of the Garden of Eden, while Eve ruled the female animals in the south and west. Adam and Eve went about naked, except for a band over their shoulder that was inscribed with the sacred name of God. And Adam and Eve lived in perfect innocence at this time. But Samael and Lilith We're busy plotting how to confound these good people. So, based on what you've heard, does anything interesting stand out to you? Yes.
Lilith was defined as a bad woman after challenging his authority, therefore defining that only a submissive woman could be a good woman.
That's right. And again, this is something that you got to understand. The past is not about pleasing present day sensibilities. The Book of Genesis, written by people spoken by people before Moses, and Moses was 12 or 1300 years before Christ. We're not going to have sensibilities about modern gender equality. They just weren't. When I got married, my wife and I were both very traditional people. And so I vowed to love, honor, and cherish her. She vowed to love, honor, and obey me. Now, what does that mean? Those traditional vows did not mean that I get everything I want all the time. That's ludicrous. What it means is that my boyhood was over. I was responsible for another life, hers. What it meant was that we wouldn't compete over who would be in charge. I was in charge. She would help. I would seek her counsel. I would respect what she had to think and say, but final choice is mine. You know what that means? Everything's my fault. That's what it means. It means if a decision is made that's wrong, it's on me because it's my decision. Issues of power are much less simple and are much more complex than they seem on the surface. Yes, certainly Eve is a submissive woman, and therefore their marriage works. Lilith demanded to be on top, and it didn't work. Every marriage is different. Every relationship is different. But this story is definitely saying that woman who wants to strive with man for control is troublemaker. Does that make sense? Again, you don't have to agree with it. I'm just asking if you understand it.
I understand what they're saying, however, I don't.
I get that, and that's totally fine. Does anything else stand out about this? Yes.
Well, I'm Jewish. I start like and
Can you take your mask down to whatever so I can hear you more clearly? I really want to hear this.
my pronunciation isn't that good. But
That's
I
okay.
said, though.
Neither's mine.
You go Baruch Atah and for like the blessing, and you know that's the like one of the.
Does Ehad Baruch Atah mean God is one? God, the Lord is one. The Lord is God.
I think it. No, I'm not really sure. I'm not that great with.
Okay.
Someone.
I'm not that great of a
I'm
Christian.
just ethnically Jewish. I barely.
Okay. Does this sound at all familiar to you? Because this doesn't come from the biblical tradition; it comes later. Talmud, is, as you know, is later than the Bible. So, in any way, does this sound like anything you learned in temple school or?
Yeah, I went to Sunday school when I was.
Okay. Is there anything that you'd like to bring out about the story that wasn't obvious? Something that is important to know?
Not really. I mean, it's all there. I'm not sure. It was a while ago.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have anything? So what? Okay. What does this say about life? Well, it says there's a hierarchy, first of all, and it's not just a hierarchy between men and women. God creates things. You know what the first sin is? Satan, whoever Satan was, saying, God, you did a really good job, but you kind of messed up here. Let me make it better. Think about that. Think about the chutzpah. Think about the sheer brass it takes to say to God, who just made you and everything else, hey, God, you did a good job, but you kind of screwed this up. Here, let me fix it for you. What is wrong with that?
Arrogant.
Yeah, it's really bleeping arrogant. What you're doing is you're playing God. You're saying, God, I, a finite mortal being, or a finite immortal being like angels, am going to judge the work of a transcendent, all-knowing, omnipotent being. That is the first rebellion. The sense that, God, I know more than you. You kind of messed up. I'd like to fix it. Yes?
The arrogance is key in the fact that many monotheistic religions believe God is both omniscient and omnipotent. By challenging his power and his knowledge, you are challenging the very essence of God himself.
Indeed. Indeed. The proper relationship with God is not a relationship of equals. a human being or an angel is supposed to recognize the chain of command. It's not for oppression's sake. We Americans hate authority. We hate tyranny. And so we sort of view all authority as essentially tyrannical. It's not. Wolves are very hierarchical too. And wolves will fight tooth and claw over who will be the dominant alpha. But once that's resolved, wolves get along just fine, as long as they follow the chain of command. It's this notion that we have been given free will that's the key to all of monotheism. An infinite, omnipotent, omniscient God has given us the ability to decide and choose for ourselves what we will do and what we will believe. So you know what that is? That's an invitation to evil. That's an invitation to sin. It's an invitation to all sorts of things. You might say, why does God do that? Why does God create beings that will rebel?
By creating beings that have the ability to rebel, and focuses on the ones that faith, therefore viewing them as the more enlightened and more faithful of all creatures.
Mm-hmm. There's another way of saying it, but that was said very well. Not being condescending, I mean that. If you love somebody, set them free.
Yeah, I was about to say something like that. Like, by given choice and not forcing them to do what he wants, you're like, humans will probably think, oh, our God is so nice, he's given us a to follow, it's like, your option is theirs to be evil, but if you're freedom to choose it, you probably won't.
Right. If God wanted to create a race of mind-numbed robots, he would have. Instead, he created us. Mind-numbed robots who behave good and never sin are not doing anything special. They're doing what they were programmed to do. Like a shark is programmed to eat and swim, and eat and swim, and breed, and eat and swim. There's nothing remarkable about that. What's remarkable is that a fully enfranchised, free human being might choose God over self. That is important. And in the case of Samael and in the case of Lilith, both of them, for reasons of, and this goes beyond the submission thing, both of them chose themselves over God and over what God has said he wanted to do, or shown that he wanted to do. Anyway, there's just, that's what I wanted to do was get deeper at the wisdom of that particular myth, because I think it's interesting. Now, we only have a little time left, so what we're going to do for those of you at home is we are going to stop here, and we are going to correct the quizzes that you all took on Tuesday. Wait, do this all the time. Bye-bye.